What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hambone Fishing. The last 2 days I've woken up and my house has been colder than what I have the AC set on. That means but one thing: we are in the fall transition. One of the best times of the year to get out and get on numbers of fish. When these fish get back in the backs of creeks and the bait is schooled up and there's just more bait than you've ever seen in your life around on your graph, then you know it is time for the fall transition and the fall patterns to start. They're looking for bait fish and they are looking for it in a very big way. So that's kind of what you're looking to imitate. So I wanted to share with you guys some of my favorite techniques for catching these fish. And really what you want to look for is how the bait is acting. Sometimes the bait will be very active and it'll be moving around in the back of a creek, and fish will come up and start busting on them, and these big schools of bait. And you want to have something ready that's going to imitate that activity. So typically what I start with is a buzzbait. This is the V-Twin Buzz from True South Custom Lures. This just happens to be the white color. I will also pick up essentially the Buzz frame, which has no skirt and just the weight with a keeper, and I'll slide a swim bait on there as well and just go that route. That's going to be probably kind of first thing in the morning, looking for that active topwater bite. But if you do see schooling shad and you see fish busting on them all day long, which you will see in the fall, I typically like the Whopper Plopper or a walking style bait to go along with that. This is, I think, the Whopper Plopper 90. I wouldn't go any bigger than this. And typically I wouldn't go with the smaller one either. The 90 seems to be the perfect size for me as far as a Whopper Plopper goes. I don't typically mess with any of the other sizes. The 75 I find tends to roll over too much, and the 110 and the 130 are just a little bit too big for what I'm typically fishing for. And then I'll go with a walking style bait, just something to cover water with, draws fish in from a long ways away. I think this is the Berkeley Kane walker. Some type of silver, white color, typically going to be best for this time of year. And that's if you see a lot of activity, if they're up near the surface, and that kind of a thing. Another way to catch them is the Lipless Crankbait. Again, shad colors, silvers, blues, that kind of thing. This is a great bait for searching, finding out where the bait is. This thing is loud. It will draw fish in from a long way away and gives off that rattle like you would hear just kind of with bait fish, and that's going to be another one if they're in an active mood. Also, I will throw a spoon here. This is a little bit on the bigger side of what I would throw this time of year. Typically I'm going to throw something a little bit smaller. I do like the War Eagle spoons. This is in white. Typically I would go with a silver, their silver color. The silver color really has done a lot of damage for me, whether it's bass or even white perch. And that's what you're going to find a lot too mixed in with that bait in the fall, is depending on your body of water, I guess. But down here we get a lot of white perch mixed in with the bass. So be ready to weed through a lot of those as well. If you are finding that this is typically more of a late fall type deal, but if you find that the bait is kind of just suspended, not really doing anything, because you should be able to see sometimes that they're just kind of hanging out. I've seen it, it looks thick enough to walk on, and they're just sitting there, and then a bass will come up and try to swipe at them, and they'll move, but then they just come back to just kind of hanging out. They're not really swirling, they're not moving, the bait isn't going anywhere. that's when the suspending jerkbait comes into play big time. You can just rip this, let it sit for 3-4 seconds, rip, and again, you're imitating what the bait is doing, just giving them something a little bit more to look at there. Another one as well is the drop shot rig. Drop shot with, this is I believe a missile baits, their drop shot bait here. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, that just something that just kind of sits there and just shakes in front of their face. I've gotten bit several times on that. And also, you know, don't be afraid to go with something like a robo worm in a crazy color, a pink color, a yellow, something different than what they're just typically seeing all of. Just stands out a little bit more. Spots might be a little more inclined to bite that. You know, so don't be afraid to throw the robo worm here. And then obviously the number one way for me around here, just as far as numbers go and just having a good time out on the water in the fall, is got to be the A-rig. I mean, this is a True South Custom Lures A-rig. It's got 5 arms, and then I've just got some swim baits on here. This is a Kitech on the back. Typically I'll throw something a little bit different on the back than what I do on the other arms. These are the Demiki Armor Shads, and these are the True South Custom Lures darter heads. I think they're like 3/16 of an ounce, I believe. They're really small. But this is a great A-rig. I typically don't like the A-rigs where you have to bend the arms out. The only one that I will throw that you do have to bend the arms out are the Shane's baits, because those arms are replaceable. So you can get a little bit more length out of each of those. But this is a pretty heavy wire on this A-rig, and that helps with, in conjunction with a light wire hook. If you get this thing stuck, which you will, on brush, on the bottom, on a dock, something or other where you can't get to it, and I'll typically throw this on 20-pound fluorocarbon, or a lot of guys will throw it on like 65-pound braid. You can bend out these hooks and get your A-rig back, because at I think 15 to 20 bucks a piece, you don't want to be losing these very often. So either get an A-rig ripper, just kind of a bait retriever or something like that to help you go down and hook on to pull that stuff out, or just you know, make sure you're using some lighter wire hooks that'll bend out so that you can get your rig back. So like I said, that is the A-rig. Whether you are chucking this thing out, if you feel like it and you want to just troll it, which I did quite a bit of yesterday because I couldn't seem to get a bite otherwise, it's a great way to catch fish. You have fun. Just know that if you put this thing in the net and that fish flops around, it is going to mangle this thing up. It's a great way to catch 2-3 fish at the same time. So even if you're catching some smaller fish, you catch 2 or 3 of them at the same time, and you're in good shape. So but that's really it, guys. It's a great time of the year to get out and fish. It's very moderate weather, mild weather, and the fish are thick. They're not hard to find. You know, if you have a graph, just look for big schools of bait on your graph and kind of look for the bigger marks. Sometimes they'll be in the middle of the bait. Sometimes they'll be underneath it. A lot of times it'll be underneath. So look for that, and look for active fish too. So you get the big long streaks going across your graph. That's what you're looking for. You don't want necessarily just the globs of bait, because there's no fish there that are gonna eat. You want the long streaks going around. So get out there, do some fishing. I know I'm going to here, probably head out the door tomorrow again, try to find some of these fall fish. The early fall can be tricky because the fish haven't adjusted yet. Sometimes that bait, like yesterday, will be pushed way back in the creek, but there's really not much on it. So definitely be aware of that. You still may have to, you know, check the docks and be fishing around that if you want to find some of these fish. So don't be afraid to try some of this stuff out. You know, let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And that's all I got for you guys today. Go ahead and get out there and fish. Like I said, the fall's a great time. Take it easy.